Welcome back, everyone. My name is Michael, and today we're going to be taking a look at some stories that display very toxic family relationships. Make sure to like and subscribe, and let's begin. This first story was posted in the AITA subreddit 4 years ago by user Throw It Away. It's titled AITA for not caring if my brother has changed and feels badly about how he treated me growing up. I'm a 19-year-old male and my brother is 21. I realized I was gay from a young age and came out at 14. My parents were supportive from the get-go, but my brother was not. He tried telling me I wasn't, or that I was trying to get attention, and tried to get me to change my mind. When that failed, he called me a freak and diseased and said I was going to hell, even though we weren't that religious. He made it clear he didn't want a relationship with me. He outed me at school, but my friends already knew. He tried to get others to join in on the bullying, but no one cared and nothing changed. Needless to say, I vowed to limit contact with him as much as possible, but the comments continued until he moved out when he turned 18. I've since gotten into a great school and have completed a year and a half. I'm in a relationship, my grades are the best they've ever been, and everything has fallen nicely into place. My brother sent me a Facebook message back in August. He started by apologizing for how he treated me, saying he was depressed before and was stuck inside his head and fell into the wrong crowd online. He said he'd gotten treatment for his depression, feels more confident than he has in years, and was on the upswing and wanted to meet up to repair our relationship. He said he was proud of me for being gay and supported me and apologized for taking so long to make it known. I didn't respond, nor did I respond to his happy birthday message in September. Then he started texting me, saying he understood if I was still hurt, but that he'd love nothing more to make up for the hurt he caused. I haven't responded to these either. Here's where my boyfriend says I'm the jerk. Over the holidays, we were all back at my parents' house. I had a great time seeing my family, except him. Each time he'd ask about me or try to talk to me, I'd give him one-word answers or clam up. He offered to get a game for me as a gift, but I declined. He pulled me aside to apologize face to face, reiterating the stuff he said before, but I also cut that short and walked away. Meanwhile, I talked with my parents like usual and was very open with them about the happenings of my life, typically within earshot of him. The day we left, I said my goodbyes and found him by my car crying. He said he understood why I was closed off to him and that he regretted how it turned out, wished me well, and went inside. I told my BF about this when I got back and he's pissed and called me a jerk. BF says it's clear my brother feels bad about how he used to be and he's changed. That throwing that all back in his face is a move. My parents agree and say he's a good person, but ultimately feel it's up to us. Personally, I've gotten so used to the idea of not having a brother that I don't know if there's anything left to salvage. He made his choice to sabotage me then. Is it my problem that he regrets his actions now? It took several months before OP gave us an update post. It said, so it's been a few months since my first post, and since a few people were asking, I thought I owed you an update. I would have provided one sooner, but this is a throwaway, and I had logged out earlier. The TLDR of the last post was I had ignored my brother's attempts to have a relationship with me after the homophobic he threw at me when we were younger. I'm glad to say that's no longer the case. A little after my last post, I texted him that I appreciated his words, but that his actions had really hurt me and that I needed time. He texted back he understood and to take as much time as I needed. He also thanked me for reaching back out to him. I spent a lot of January and February in self-reflection and trying to figure out what I wanted. Lots of people in the last post said I needed therapy, and I agree I likely did. I never ended up seeing a professional, but I got really into some guided meditation and calming exercises I saw on YouTube. Making a habit of it helped me realize how much weight I was carrying and has helped me start to let that weight down. I still have some ways to go, but I can feel my empathy growing, and I like that. I went home for spring break and saw my bro for the first time since Christmas. Long story short, we spent a lot of time hanging out and our relationship is recovering. We've had some hard conversations, cried, shared a couple of joints, etc. I came away from the break feeling much better about everything, and since each of our schools has closed down due to the pandemic, we're both at home and doing our classes remotely and hanging out on the downtime. I want to thank those of you who said I'd probably regret cutting him out, because I can tell you were right. My brother isn't perfect and did many things to purposely hurt me, but people can change if they want to, and he did. I wouldn't want to be judged by my lowest point, and I'm working on not judging him by his. I finally have my brother back, and forgiving him has helped me feel better in ways I didn't realize I needed. Thank you. To answer some common questions, no, my boyfriend from the first post and I are no longer together, but for separate reasons unrelated to the post. We just wanted different things and were at different stages of our lives. It was a parting with minimal hard feelings. I don't consider his reaction to be manipulative. It wasn't a hard, do this or we're through. Some of you asked why my brother did all this in the first place. There's no one reason. He was in a dark place and dealing with a lot of issues in a bad way. He was ignorant about a lot of LGBT stuff and relied on that ignorance when it came to me. It took a while, but going off to college and meeting new people made him question his beliefs. It was a step-by-step process until he saw how wrong he was. He said he didn't even realize how what he was doing was hurtful a lot of the time because he was so in his own head and had some really bad influences on the internet reinforcing his mindset. I can understand that, and I love how far he's come. Some of you asked, why didn't our parents intervene even though they always had my back? They did a lot of the time, but most of what he said and did wasn't in their presence. I was not one to go running to them each time I was the victim of something either. They are good people, and I hold no animosity towards what they might have done instead. I'm thinking about showing my brother this and the previous thread so he has a better understanding of how I felt about this and may update later on how that goes. Also, I just want to say to others out there who feel they've been repeatedly wronged by someone to the point they want to cut them off that I know exactly how you feel. But the fact is, people can change if they want to, and even if they do, you're under no obligation to welcome them back into your life. But if you can find it in your heart, I'd strongly encourage you to give them a fair shot at doing so. People do up things, sometimes many times, or for many years before they realize it and feel remorse. We're all only human. So this post was actually very heartwarming, unlike the majority of the stories covered here. I really don't have much to say, besides congrats to OP for getting a loving brother back in his life. Accepting that people can change is definitely a tough pill to swallow, and most are probably not capable of doing that. This next post was created in the Surviving Infidelity subreddit in 2020 by user in desperate need of help. The title is Daughter's Drunk Confession Turned My World Upside Down and Current Circumstances Make It Even Worse. I'm not sure if this is the right place to post this since my situation is very different from others, but I am desperate. My wife and I have been together for 25 years but married for 19. We are high school sweethearts and have 2 amazing kids, a daughter and a son. I was honestly under the impression that we had a solid marriage and that our relationship wouldn't be like our friends and colleagues, and that we'd actually stand the test of time. Now I see how spectacularly naive and wrong I was. My wife has been a stay-at-home mom for most of our adult lives. This is something we both agreed on, but after our kids went to college, she began feeling restless. Empty nest syndrome, I guess. She would tell me she was feeling unfulfilled and felt like she had lost sense of who she was. I tried recommending hobbies we could do together, places we could visit, or even adopting puppies if that would help. At first, she was all for it, but soon began saying she wanted to feel like she was contributing and not simply coasting through life. I understood and was willing to support her. She never liked sitting still, so I expected it. She complained to a few friends, and one of them actually managed to get her an interview at a real estate firm. She used to work in one before having the kids. I was just as excited as she was when she accepted. In the beginning, things were going great, but after the first year, I noticed some changes. She started going to drink-ups with coworkers and began texting a lot more than usual when at home and at odd hours at night. She even started wearing a particular type of perfume and would wear more suggestive clothing. Nothing too revealing or but clothing that complemented her body figure a lot more than usual. But what made me suspicious was when I accidentally saw a message from a male coworker on her phone, which seemed to be highly inappropriate and flirtatious. I asked about it, and I could tell she was slightly shaken, but assured me he was simply a friend and she would talk to him about his inappropriate messages. I, not wanting to be the paranoid, jealous, and controlling husband, chose to believe her and let it go. I wish I didn't. Her behavior got strange as time went on. She started mentioning how she wanted to be more spontaneous with life and even picked up smoking weed. I made jokes about how she seemed to live the same college lifestyle as our kids and suggested she slow down. But she dropped an absolute boom when she was drunk the other night. She said that I was holding her back. I was completely blindsided by this and believed I was messing up somehow, so I tried to do everything to improve the marriage. I even booked counseling, but it went nowhere. Then, out of the blue, that strange behavior stopped. My wife apologized for the way she had acted. She said it was like she had forgotten who she was, but realized what she had at home and knew she didn't want to lose it. She resigned from her job and we began marriage counseling. It was tough initially, but things improved immensely, and for the 2 years, our marriage was better than ever. She was more attentive, initiated intimacy, and would shower me affectionately. The only problem is that her relationship with our daughter was in a nosedive. I would question my wife about it, but she tells me it was a growing phase or a woman thing. Once again, I would take her word for it. The funny thing is that my relationship with my daughter improved. She would call a lot more, meet me for coffee or lunch often during the week, and even buy me gifts and stuff. I always told her it wasn't necessary, but she insisted, and I could always tell she wanted to say something but would hold her tongue. Tragedy struck one evening as my wife was returning from doing groceries and she was hit by a drunk driver. She unfortunately lost the use of her legs and has been wheelchair bound ever since. Things got really bad, and she would make suggestions about me sleeping with other women, to which I refused. I just choked it up to her depression and reminded her that I was here to stay because I loved her more than anything. This made her cry, and she asked me why I was so good to her or what she did to deserve me. Again, I chalked it up to depression and just tried to help her as best I could. Sometime later, we went for our medical checkups. The doctor sat us down to inform us that they found a mass in my wife's throat. It was of an unusual size, and because it may be cancerous, they had to do a biopsy. My first reaction was shock, whereas my wife was just blank at first, then she started laughing. It started small, then became hysterical as she mumbled that this was her punishment. We managed to calm her down, but she requested that before the biopsy, we could do a family dinner. I, of course, agreed, and we had our kids and immediate family over. I made a speech about how my wife was the light of my life and how we'd get through this, but at the end of my speech, I noticed my daughter was uncomfortable. I thought that maybe what was going on made her feel that way. The next evening, my daughter phoned me drunk, begging me not to hate her. At first, I was confused, but reassured her that I would never hate her because she was my little girl and I would always love her. At those words, she went on to tell me how she caught her mother cheating on me with a man she had never seen before. It was during my wife's time at the real estate firm. My daughter had gone on a road trip with some friends and decided to pass by a diner they don't normally frequent. And that's where she saw her mother lip-locked with a man who looked nothing like me. Apparently, this was her relationship with her mom deteriorated and ours improved. I confronted my wife, and to her credit, she didn't deny it. Through tears, she confirmed it was the coworker from the messages and said it was the dumbest thing she had ever done. She said he was always coming on to her and eventually wore down her walls. She tells me getting caught by our daughter made her realize the gravity of what she was doing. She wanted to take it to the grave because she never wanted to hurt me. She said she was too much of a coward to confess, so she begged our child not to tell me. I am absolutely shattered at the revelation and don't know what to do. I now question every aspect of our relationship and wonder where I went wrong. She tells me I was a good husband and that none of this is on me. The problem is that ever since I found out, I haven't loved her. I still take care of her, but it's more like a nurse does with a patient than a husband to his wife. If I leave her, she will be completely stranded. She is dependent on me both financially and emotionally, and it seems immensely unfair. Sorry if it seems all over the place, but I am a mess right now. Less than a week later, Opie provided an update. I did something I am not proud of. My wife has always been on my case to express my true feelings and thoughts about her no matter how ugly or cruel they may be. Not long after my first post, when I was about to leave my wife to eat the meal I made for her, she suddenly grabbed my hand and begged me to say something to her. She had begged me multiple times at this point, but I never responded. She wanted me to say anything because it was killing her the way I'd been treating her since our D-Day. At those words, I just exploded. A lot came out of me. I told her that to me she was perfection, but since this happened, she has become used in my eyes. I told her that the very sound of her voice used to make me want to give her the world, but now simply being around her makes me want to run and never look back. I told her that now she is like a dead weight around my neck that will never leave because it needs me to survive. I explained that through all this, she is still somehow the first thing I think about when I wake up in the morning, and the last thing I think about when I go to sleep. But those thoughts are accompanied by a pain I never knew existed, and it makes me absolutely miserable because somehow I still need her. I still want to hold her in my arms, but each time I touch her, I have mental movies of her with another man. What eats at me the most is the fact that she dragged our daughter into this. She put our baby girl in an impossible position and expected life to go on like nothing happened. I pointed out that even despite her current circumstances, her relationship with our daughter was still bad, and that is the fruit of her actions. My wife just sobbed softly through it all, and at the end, she simply said she deserved all that was coming her way. She said she tried her hardest to atone for the disgusting decision she made during that time, and that she has never stopped seeking forgiveness from our daughter. She explains that seeing me in this state makes her feel like a murderer, and she will do absolutely anything to help me heal and recover from this. She added that she wanted me to know that even if I never forgive her and end up divorcing her, she has and always will love only me. She doesn't regret our life and marriage because it is more than she could have ever asked for. Apparently, she could hardly look at herself in the mirror because of who was looking back at her, and she never wanted to be that person. I can see she clearly hates herself for what she did, but I am torn about all this. I never knew it was possible to absolutely love someone and hate them at the same time. I have decided to book therapy for me and my wife because I have a lot I want to say to her, but I am afraid I'll go too far. So, speaking in a controlled environment will be best. I also have this overwhelming urge to speak with the man she was involved with. It might be useless after many years, but I feel like I need to for my own sanity's sake. I want to know who was the man that had the audacity to actually come between a husband and his wife. I believe I will ask for his information during the therapy session. Once again, thank you all so much. And unfortunately, that was the final post we got from OP regarding this situation. While I am pissed off alongside OP, the man genuinely loves this woman with all of his heart. Honestly, back when OP mentioned that, his wife suddenly started asking things like, "What did I do to deserve you?" I instantly knew she cheated on him. We've seen that sort of thing happen 2 to 3 times already with partners who actually regret their choices. OP also never informed us on how far his wife went with this other man. From what I understood, his daughter saw the man with OP's wife kissing, but we don't really know when she actually caved and started seeing him consistently. And while I think there's more to cheating than just the physical aspect, if all the two did was kiss, I don't think it's as bad. Still, piece of shit thing to do regardless. It puts you in a mental position where you can't really trust your partner ever again if you choose to stay with them. And maybe it's the fact that the wife lost the use of her legs and has cancer that I'm feeling somewhat sympathetic. Like OP said, his wife didn't just hurt him, but their daughter as well. She had to go through every day with this secret. The couple also had a son, and I'm sure this situation sucks for him as well. I really wish we got an update, but doesn't look like we ever will since there hasn't been much activity on the account. This next post was created in April of this year. It was posted in the True Off My Chest subreddit by user constant Barnacle992. The post is titled, "I Ruined My Wife's Life." There was an update made in May which we will go over at the very end. I, 43 male, try to do my best to provide for my wife, 38, and 2 kids, 3 and 5, as well as my mother-in-law. I would like to think I'm doing a decent job. Over the years, I worked to improve our family's living situation. Not only did I complete another bachelor's and recently master's in a STEM-related degree, but at the same time, I worked 2 full-time jobs and put my wife through school as well. She completed a degree where she could make good money, about $70K a year. She would be in a healthcare field that always has jobs available. But with the birth of our 2 kids, she has since given up on her career to be a stay-at-home mom for the time being. At first, it was a struggle while I was finishing up my master's. Once I completed it after our youngest turned 3, my career took a jump up, and we are now able to afford our single-income household more comfortably. We're far from rich, but do okay for a single-income family of 4, a little north of 150K base plus bonuses. The past year, my wife said life was overwhelming, so even though I now work 75% from home, I budgeted to hire a daytime nanny to help her around the house with 1 child while the other is in school now. My day starts around 5:30 to 6 a.m. I get the house ready for the day before the nanny comes at 8 a.m. I get our oldest up and ready for school, have breakfast made, plan out my day, bring our oldest to drop off, and be home in time to let the nanny in. My most recent task at work has me grounded for the next 2 months, meaning I am now 100% working from home. While this is nice, I am busy in meetings all day as my role manages teams on a global scale as I oversee projects from my industry. For the past 1.5 months, I realized that my wife's life is pretty easy, even though she says it's stressful. She gets up at 10 a.m. I asked my mother-in-law and nanny if this was always the case after a week or so of working from home. They both responded yes, sometimes earlier, sometimes later. My wife wakes up and cooks and then scrolls through her phone or shops from home. Which brings me to my gripe. I am glad I'm able to provide her with that sort of life since we both grew up lacking in means. I get the possibility of postpartum depression, the stress of having kids, the feeling of being unfulfilled, and the fact that I probably am a husband, but for what it's worth, everything is taken care of and then some. I manage the house's finances since she claimed she was too busy. I pay all the household bills, pay my own personal bills, pay her bills, track and perform all the upkeep of our house appliances, cars, pets, etc. I also pay for my mother-in-law's medical bills and car note. But apparently my life is on easy street compared to hers. I can't decompress to her because it seems like she always feels the need to one-up me. I had a bad day, but she had it worse because I'm lucky I got to go away and work. My feet hurt from walking all day during work travel, which is nothing compared to her standing and cooking with a child clinging to her. For the past 2 or so years, I've been told I ruined her life, her opportunities, etc. But when I reminded her of what she said, she denied it and dodged accountability. My mother-in-law has brought me aside and stated she's noticed a change in both myself and my wife. I have a greater attachment to my kids, and hell, I've hugged the dogs and talked to them more about my life than to my wife. I honestly feel like I am in emotional survival mode as I'm one step from moving up the career ladder and one step away from finding love and comfort from the bottom of a whiskey bottle. I'm sure I'll be hearing from the manly men of Reddit about how I'm simping, but I'm not a machine. I just want to know and feel that someone I prioritize aside from my kids appreciates and loves me for what I do. I'm sure I'll hear from the stay-at-home moms of Reddit, which is fine. I grew up in a single mother household. It's not easy, but honestly, with the help of her mother and a nanny Monday through Friday for one toddler while another child is at school, can you honestly tell me she's having the typical stay-at-home mom experience? Neither my friends nor colleagues who are single parents can say she is. I'm sure the masses of holier-than-thou Redditors will consider this a poorly written fanfic, but it is what it is. TLDR, it feels as if my wife has checked out of our marriage. We're only roommates where she can still reap the marriage benefits. I'm not asking for her to throw herself at me all the time and let me do whatever I want. I really just want to be told I'm doing good and just offer me some form of emotional comfort as simple as a hug, but I guess as the man who ruined her life, I deserve it. To add more context, I never cheated. I do work in an industry that has a large female population, but I'm literally an open book with work. I name colleagues and staff under me, and she has access to my work agendas and correspondence if she really wants to snoop. But on that note, she still doesn't know what exactly I do for a living at this time. We, as a whole family, her parents and mine, have tried to get her to go to therapy, but she refuses or skirts around the issue. Aside from my coming from a single mother household purse, my biological dad was present in my life. She has had both parents in a reportedly monogamous marriage for over 40 years. I have tried to talk to her about everything and my own feelings, but again, she tries to one-up me all the time. What I am getting out of the marriage was asked. Right now, aside from my 2 beautiful kids, I've been asking myself that same question. We have had a non-existent life mainly since last year. I always figured maybe it's part of depression or whatever she may be going through. Maybe I'm just not attractive enough or just horrible in bed because of my health conditions. I'm not some supermodel husband, but temptation and opportunity do knock, and I can perform still. But I never give in because, as cliche as it sounds, I honestly do love my wife and want to only be with her. I'll give credit where credit is due as I don't want to sound biased. When I say she wakes up and cooks, she cooks for everyone in the house. Myself, kids, mother-in-law, and even the nanny. Aside from breakfast, she cooks all meals and snacks. I typically fast until lunchtime, and our oldest tends to eat a small, simple breakfast in case they don't like what school serves that morning. She does load both the kids and her laundry, but seldomly folds and puts them up. I typically do my own laundry. She also keeps track of our pantry and fridge, but after she makes the shopping list, I'm the one who goes out and buys everything if not delivered. She cleans our bathrooms and house 50% of the time. The other 50 is done by either my mother-in-law or myself, or sometime the nanny if she feels like being extra helpful. Prior to nanny, my mother-in-law was the main help for my wife up until she had unexpected medical needs, so I opted to hire a nanny to help them both, more so when my mother-in-law is having treatments and recovering. As for the update, it was added on May 6th. It says, "Not sure if anyone would read this, but thank you to those who have reached out and chit-chatted. While I know I've kept my newfound friends here updated, I figured I'd just update my post and keep it short. I showed my wife my post the following weekend, and she read it and all the comments. Long story short, argument, she left our house to stay with her sister, and I've been a single parent since. It's sad to say that aside from the good nights to our kids, it's all pretty much the same routine. There is not much else to say other than thank you for all the kind words of encouragement. Also, I want to add that this post got bigger than I expected from a venting post. Nonetheless, thank you for the comments and messages. Even more so for the offers to let me ruin your life, which made me laugh. It's been the highlight of my day and night as I sit here drinking with my dog while everyone else is asleep. It's depressingly sad that I have to turn to random internet strangers for validation in my rant. My apologies in advance as I try to keep this as vague as possible. OP provided an update post not long after. The update was made on June 3rd. Post-birth, our kid's pediatrician's office gave my wife those postpartum depression screening forms. She scored pretty high and was suggested to see a therapist. With our second child, she scored significantly higher, and we, or rather I, made an effort to get her the help she needed. She refused. That's where my mother-in-law and the nanny come in for support. I know what people will think, but this is one of the reasons I am not 100% ready just to give up and file our life together away. Also, I know silently suffering in the near and long run of our kids' future will not add to a healthy atmosphere, but neither would a bitter and hate-filled divorce. I know some have compared it to ripping off a bandage, saying it'll hurt at first, but that pain goes away. But I'd instead try to spare my kids from thinking that their parents ended up hating each other because of them or something along those lines. I've talked with a few people on here since my last post. Here's some more info. Prior to my promotion, I was a PM managing teams and budgets, so out of habit, I planned for a lot of what-ifs. That being said, I made several contingency plans if, sadly, things went south. So yes, I have talked to a lawyer, 3 actually. I know our rights and what each of us is entitled to. I also have a draft settlement created and on hold until I feel I need to use it. I know what I want and am willing to offer more than what is fair for our kids' well-being. But I also have a plan if we end up going to court. It's 100% on me that I'm suffering in silence, but I'm too stubborn to just give up. So while I am venting, I don't expect anyone to feel sorry for me. I endure it to keep the norm for the kids. I also want to ensure my mother-in-law's treatments go uninterrupted. And of course, I hope my wife would finally be open to giving therapy a shot and climbing together to a better place. Thank you all again. I just wanted to update those who have been kind enough to check up via DM and comments. Apologies in advance for the lengthy post. It's a bit of irony and coincidence that I made a follow-up from the update on May 6th on my original post during Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, but I could really use another outlet outside of my therapist. My apologies if this isn't the storybook ending or destroying of a relationship people were hoping for. To save you a read. Wife left and then came back like nothing happened. She made it about her. Nothing's changed. I'm continuing to suffer mentally, knowing nothing will change while trying to keep it together for our kids. Lots of takeout. The day after she packed up and left, my wife attempted to come back and take the kids with her to her sister's. Naturally, I was against this, and thankfully, so was her whole family, including that sister. Not only was it not fair to our kids for her to sweep them away into a home that's not theirs, but to put that financial and housing stress on the rest of her family was wrong. Since she doesn't work, she was freeloading on her sister's family of 5. After a little over a week of being away, I guess she cooled off, so she just decided that it would be fine if she walked in the door with her bags as if she just came back from Target. She came into my office while I was working and angrily stared at me while I sat on a conference call meeting with my team. I couldn't just jump off as this is a busy time of the quarter for us. I guess that didn't sit well with her because once I took off my headset and closed my laptop, she started yelling at me about how much I really didn't care about her and her well-being overall. At that moment, I couldn't do anything more than look at her and just shake my head. Mother-in-law came in after hearing my wife yelling and pulled her away, telling her to not bother me. Meanwhile, our nanny kept our youngest away from it all on the other side of the house. That night, after the kids were put to bed, I sat in my office by myself with a drink as I have been doing for the past nights. Then my wife came in. We talked, we argued, we cried, we drank. One thing led to another and we were in bed. I wish I could say that was our making up, but the next sobering morning as we lay there, she went on about how hard it was for her at her sister's house. It was literally all about her struggles staying at her family house in her old room with her dad and sister's family. She went on to say that I'm lucky to be able to stay here and buy or do whatever I wanted and not stress. She said that my life was way easier despite despite all of us having similar upbringings. My mind and heart broke that morning. I've been spiraling down since then, and this last week, I made another attempt to reconcile and talk things out. But I was met with a shouting match while trying to express my current stress and anxieties with life and work in general. My wife said, "Well, do you know how hard this is for me? You're supposed to make me happy." I responded to her by saying, "So when it comes to my happiness, stress, needs, and overall well-being, it doesn't matter." My wife then said, "We all have our own problems, you need to figure it out and get over them." I don't know who the woman I am at home with is, but that wasn't the woman I married and vowed to spend my life with and raise our kids together. Since that conversation, I've been noticeably distant from her. I've been sleeping in my office, on the couch, or with my kids in their bed after putting either one of them to sleep. It still doesn't change her starting her day at 10 a.m. and sitting on her phone talking to her mom groups between cooking meals. All the while she leaves the kids in both mother-in-law and nanny's care. Nothing has changed, and I doubt that anything will change. Sadly, I think even if we got a divorce, nothing would change or feel different anyway, since during my wife's leaving, the days seemed like any other day except with a little more takeout than usual. My main fear there isn't that I wouldn't just lose my wife, I'd lose my kids in the process. So I guess it's sad to say the grand finale to my story is I'll just continue to smile and suffer in silence. This was just a completely depressing story to read. OP isn't even willing to actually go through with the divorce. I understand that it's because of the potential of losing the kids, but nevertheless, the hopelessness is just so sad. OP did say that his wife was completely different before they married. This could mean two things. That one, his wife was just putting up a facade in order to get married. Or two, the postpartum depression stuff hit her much harder than most. I did a brief search on postpartum depression, and some sources have stated that if left untreated, PPD can last for years. I don't understand why the wife is not willing to seek therapy. I guess there's also the third possibility that the wife is having an affair, but I'm not so sure this is the case, since I'd guess that the mother-in-law or nanny would have picked up on it. This whole series of events is pretty new, so we might see additional updates in the near future.